So, we're about to go through something together that might change how you see manifestation entirely. And I need to be upfront with you about what we're doing here, because this isn't going to be like the other channels you've watched. What I'm going to show you is a complete system for reality creation. And when I say complete, I mean it includes the parts that everyone else leaves out. The diagnostic tools, the troubleshooting protocols, the actual mechanics of how this works. And I know that probably sounds like every other manifestation channel promising you the real secrets. So let me tell you why this is different. And then you can decide for yourself whether it's worth your time. You've tried manifestation before, haven't you? You did the visualizations, you repeated the affirmations, you tried to act as if, and it didn't work. And when it didn't work, what did every teacher tell you? They told you that you didn't believe enough, that you weren't doing it right, that you needed to try harder, believe more, feel it deeper. But here's what they couldn't tell you, and this is where we're starting to get into territory that most teachers don't even know exists. They couldn't tell you which specific belief was blocking you. They couldn't tell you where that belief lives in your personality structure, whether it's in your values, your decisions, your memories, or one of the other layers. They couldn't tell you which of the 6 filters holds the block. They couldn't tell you how to clear it once you found it. And most importantly, they couldn't tell you how to troubleshoot when their techniques didn't work because they don't have a diagnostic framework. Now, I'm going to make a claim that might sound arrogant, but I need you to hear me out. The reason manifestation didn't work for you isn't because you didn't believe enough. It's because you were missing frameworks. Critical pieces of understanding that make the difference between techniques that work and techniques that fail. Most manifestation teaching fails. And when I say fails, I don't mean it's slightly ineffective. I mean it fundamentally cannot deliver what it promises because the teaching itself is structurally incomplete in 3 specific ways. Now you might be thinking, okay, here we go. Another person claiming everyone else is wrong. And I get that skepticism. But let me show you what I mean, and you can evaluate whether this makes sense. The first way is that they have no mechanism. Think about what you've been taught. They tell you to just believe, but that's not an instruction, that's a destination. It's like telling someone to just fly without explaining how flight actually works. And here's why that matters to you specifically. Without understanding the mechanism, you can't troubleshoot when something doesn't work. You're just repeating techniques blindly, hoping they'll eventually click, and when they don't, you have no way to diagnose why because you don't understand what was supposed to happen in the first place. You know that frustration, right? You do everything the teacher says, it doesn't work, and you're left thinking, what did I do wrong? But what if you didn't do anything wrong? What if the method itself was incomplete? The second way is that they have no diagnostics, and this is where you probably recognize your own experience most clearly. Techniques do fail. You know this. You've experienced it. You do the visualization, you repeat the affirmations, you act as if, and nothing happens, or worse, the opposite of what you wanted manifests instead. So what do they tell you? They tell you that you didn't believe enough. But that's not diagnosis, that's blame. That's a teacher refusing to acknowledge that their method might be incomplete. Because here's what they cannot tell you, and I want you to notice this the next time you watch another manifestation video. Can they tell you which specific belief is blocking you? No. Can they tell you where that belief is stored in your personality structure? No. Can they tell you when it was installed, what the origin event was, which layer of your personality holds it? No, no, and no. And most importantly, can they tell you how to clear it once you've found it? They can't, because they don't have the diagnostic framework. All they have is vague blame that leaves you exactly where you started, except now you also feel like you failed when the truth is the method was incomplete from the beginning. Now, I know some of you are probably feeling defensive right now, thinking about teachers you like or techniques that did work for you sometimes. And that's fair. I'm not saying everything out there is completely useless. What I'm saying is that without certain frameworks, you're going to succeed sometimes and fail other times, and you won't know why either happened. The third way is that they're missing critical frameworks that explain why techniques fail for some people but work perfectly for others. And this is what makes me certain that most teachers simply don't have access to the complete picture. Not because they're bad people, but because these frameworks exist in specialized fields that most manifestation teachers have never studied. Without these frameworks, you're trying to fix a machine without knowing where the parts are. You might eventually stumble onto the solution, but it'll take years, and most people give up long before they get there. Maybe you've already given up. Maybe you're watching this as a last attempt before you decide manifestation is just nonsense. So here's what this channel provides. And I want to be specific because I'm not interested in making vague promises. 3 things that are completely absent from most other teaching, and you'll be able to verify this for yourself as we go through the curriculum. First, complete mechanics. And by mechanics, I mean the actual process by which consciousness creates physical reality. Not philosophy, not poetry, but the step-by-step chain of how beliefs form in the first place, where they're stored in your personality structure, how they filter your perception so you only see what confirms them, how they generate emotions that feel like reactions but are actually creations, how those emotions drive behavior that produces results, and how those results feed back to reinforce the original belief. The entire chain, piece by piece, so you can see exactly where things go wrong and how to correct them. And I need to tell you something about this that might make you uncomfortable. You've been taught that emotions create beliefs, that if you feel good first, your beliefs will change. And I'm going to show you evidence that this is backwards. You change the belief first, and the emotion follows automatically. Now, I know that contradicts what you've heard from probably every other teacher, so you don't have to take my word for it. We're going to prove it using your own experience. Second, diagnostic tools. And when I say diagnostic, I mean precision instruments that let you identify which specific belief is running right now, where it lives in your 6-layer personality structure, what installed it in the first place, when it was installed, and which clearing protocol matches that particular filter. Because here's something you need to understand. Different filters require different approaches. You can't clear a decision the same way you clear a belief. If you've been using the wrong technique for the wrong layer, that's why it didn't work, and it's not your fault because no one told you the layers exist. Now, I know this might sound complicated, and you might be thinking 6 layers, I have to learn 6 different things, but here's what I want you to understand. You don't need to memorize this right now. What matters is that beliefs aren't just floating around randomly in your mind, they're organized in a structure, and that structure determines how you clear them. Once you understand this, everything gets easier, not harder. Third, troubleshooting protocols, which means when a technique doesn't work, you'll know exactly what to check. And I want to be clear about why this matters. Right now, when a technique doesn't work, you blame yourself. You think you didn't believe hard enough, or you didn't feel it deeply enough, or you're somehow broken. But what if none of that is true? What if the technique failed because you have a time coding issue that makes certain techniques literally impossible for your neurology? What if the technique failed because you cleared a surface belief, but the root belief is still running? What if the technique failed because the conscious mind rejected it as illogical? You'll have a systematic way to diagnose and solve the problem instead of just being told to believe more when that's not even the actual issue. And look, I'm not saying this system is perfect or that I have everything figured out. What I'm saying is that I've spent years synthesizing 5 different sources, each one filling a gap that the others leave open, and this synthesis gives you something that doesn't exist anywhere else. This isn't inspiration, this is implementation. And if you're looking for feel-good affirmations and vision boards, you're in the wrong place. This is the manual, not the motivation. I need to be upfront about that because I don't want to waste your time if that's what you're looking for. Now let me tell you where this system comes from because I think it's important for you to understand why I'm making these claims. This isn't something I invented out of nowhere. This is a synthesis of 5 sources. And I need to be specific about what each source contributes because this isn't random combination. Each source fills a gap that the others leave open. And each one provides a piece that makes the complete system possible. And before I tell you about these sources, I want to acknowledge something. You might be thinking, great, another person claiming they've discovered the secret by combining different teachings. And I get why you'd be skeptical of that. But here's what I'm asking you to do. Don't take my word for it. Listen to what each source provides, see if it makes logical sense, and then test it against your own experience. That's the only way you're going to know if this is real. Seth Material provides the foundation. And by foundation, I mean the core mechanism, the base layer that everything else builds on. And here's what Seth teaches that completely changes everything. Consciousness creates reality, not as poetry, not as metaphor, but as literal mechanics, where your beliefs determine what you perceive as real, and your emotions follow those beliefs automatically, not the other way around. Now, I know I just said that emotions follow beliefs, and you've been taught the opposite your entire life. So let me prove this to you using your own experience. Think about negative beliefs. You said, I am broke one time with full conviction, didn't need 75,000 repetitions, didn't need to feel broke first. You just believed it with certainty, and now you're broke. That happened, right? You didn't manufacture the feeling of being broke and then the belief followed. You believed it first, and the feeling came automatically. This is critical because most teaching tells you to feel good first, then your beliefs will change. But that's backwards. You change the belief first, and the emotion follows automatically. And you already know this is true because you've already proven it with negative beliefs. The question isn't whether this works, you've demonstrated that it works. The question is, how do you generate the same conviction for what you want that you already have for what you don't want? And Seth answers this by showing you that the conscious mind is the gatekeeper that only accepts what makes logical sense to it, which means you can't bypass it with techniques. You have to convince it first. That's the mechanism. Not feel your way into new beliefs, but convince the logical part of your mind, and the feelings follow automatically. Now, you might be thinking, but I've tried logic and it didn't work either. And that's because you're still missing the structure. You need to know where beliefs live before you can change them. That's where the next source comes in. Timeline therapy provides the structure, and this is where most manifestation teaching completely falls apart because they don't have a model for where beliefs actually live in your personality. You've been told to identify your limiting beliefs, right? But identify them where, in what structure, using what map. Here's what I mean. They just tell you to find your limiting beliefs, but your personality isn't just a bag of random thoughts floating around. Your personality is organized. It has layers. It has a structure. And each layer requires a different approach to change because you can't clear a decision the same way you clear a belief, and you can't shift a value the same way you shift a memory. Timeline therapy gives us the 6 filters model, which shows us exactly how personality is organized into 6 layers that stack in a specific hierarchy. And I know this might sound complicated, but stay with me because once you understand this, everything about why techniques fail or succeed will make sense. The first filter is meta-programs, which are unconscious attention filters that control what you notice and what you ignore without you ever being aware of the filtering process. Have you ever wondered why you see certain things and other people don't? Or why other people see things you completely miss? That's meta-programs. They're filtering your perception before it even reaches your conscious awareness. The second filter is values, which is your motivational hierarchy. What you consider important determines what you move toward and what you move away from. And here's something you need to understand about values. You might consciously say, I value abundance. But if your actual value hierarchy puts security above abundance, you're going to choose security every time, even though you think you're choosing abundance. The third filter is beliefs, which are the on-off switches for what you think is possible. And if you don't believe you can do something, you won't even try, which means the belief prevents the action that would prove the belief wrong. This is why people stay stuck. The belief creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. The fourth filter is attitudes, which are collections of values and beliefs organized around specific subjects, and they're harder to change than single beliefs because they're networks, not isolated thoughts. You might change one belief, but if the whole network of attitudes around that subject hasn't changed, the belief comes back. The fifth filter is memories, which is time-coded storage of past experience, what happened, when it happened, what meaning you extracted from it, and how that meaning shaped your beliefs. And here's something important. Memories aren't fixed. They're flexible. They're reconstructed every time you recall them. This is why techniques like revision work, you're not changing the past, you're changing the memory, which changes the belief the memory supports. The sixth filter is decisions, which are choices you made, usually between ages 0 and 7, when you had limited information, and those decisions are still running now. Think about that. I'm not good enough decided at age 5 is still controlling your behavior at 45 unless you go back and clear it at its source. Now, I know that's a lot of information at once. 6 different layers, each working differently. You don't need to memorize this right now. What matters is understanding that beliefs aren't just floating around randomly. They're organized in a structure, and that structure determines how you clear them. Without this structure, you're just guessing about where the problem is. Timeline therapy provides that structure. And here's why this matters to you personally. You've probably tried techniques that worked for other people but didn't work for you, right? And you blamed yourself. You thought you were doing it wrong. But what if the technique was designed for a different filter than the one you need to clear? What if you were trying to clear a decision with a technique designed for beliefs? It's not that you failed. It's that you were using the wrong tool for the job. Bashar provides the diagnostic tools, and without diagnosis, you're just throwing techniques at the wall hoping something sticks. That's what you've been doing so far, isn't it? Trying different techniques, hoping one of them works, not knowing which one or why. Bashar gives us precision instruments that produce specific, measurable results. The motivation mechanism shows you what you actually believe by watching what you move toward and what you move away from. And this is important because you might say, I believe I'm abundant. But if you're avoiding looking at your bank account, then you don't actually believe it. Your behavior reveals the real belief that's running underneath your conscious statements. Have you noticed this in yourself? You say you believe one thing, but your actions show something else. That's not hypocrisy. That's a conflict between different filters. Your conscious belief says one thing, but your value or your decision says something else, and the deeper filter wins. The worst case technique makes unconscious beliefs visible by asking, what's the worst thing that could happen if I get what I want? And whatever fear comes up in response to that question, that's the hidden belief blocking you, not the belief you think you have, but the one running in the dark making decisions for you without your conscious awareness. Now you might be thinking, I don't have any hidden beliefs blocking me from success. And maybe that's true, but humor me for a second. What would happen if you got everything you wanted? Really think about it. Would your friends resent you? Would you lose your current relationships? Would you have to take on responsibilities you don't want? Whatever fear comes up, that's what's actually stopping you. These aren't vague exercises. These are diagnostic instruments that show you exactly what's running so you know what needs to be cleared. And once you know what needs to be cleared, you need to know how to install the new belief. That's where Neville comes in. Neville Goddard provides the installation protocols, and once you've cleared the old belief, you need to install the new one. And installation isn't just repetition, it's not affirmations 10,000 times. There's a specific method that works with how the mind actually functions. SATS, which is state akin to sleep, is the drowsy state where the conscious mind gatekeeper goes offline and belief can be installed directly into the subconscious without the gatekeeper rejecting it. Have you ever noticed that affirmations feel like lies when you're fully awake? That's because the conscious mind is online, evaluating everything, rejecting what doesn't make sense. But in the drowsy state, the gatekeeper is offline. Revision is rewriting past memories to change the meaning you extracted from them. And when you change the memory, you change the belief that the memory supports, because memories aren't fixed, they're flexible. They're reconstructed every time you recall them. So if you have a memory that supports a limiting belief, you can revise that memory and the belief changes automatically. Living from the end is occupying the state of already having what you want right now, not hoping to get it someday. And here's why this works. The mind doesn't know the difference between what's happening out there in physical reality and what's happening in here in imagination. It sees both as one. So if you're living from the end internally, the mind accepts that as current reality and begins generating the emotions and behaviors that match that state. These are the installation methods that Neville tested for decades, and they work, but only if you understand why they work, which requires Seth's foundation and timeline's structure. You can't just do SATs without understanding the conscious mind gatekeeper. You can't just do revision without understanding the memory filter. This is why people fail with Neville's techniques. They're using them without the framework. Richard Dotz provides the maintenance system Because installation isn't enough, you can install a new belief perfectly and then collapse it 3 days later by giving too much importance to whether it's working. And I'm guessing you've experienced this, right? You feel good about the new belief for a few days, and then you check to see if it's working, and when you don't see evidence immediately, the belief collapses. This is the importance paradox, which says that when you give importance to external results, when you need to see it working, need evidence, need proof right now, you're actually taking importance away from yourself. You're saying that the external result is more important than your internal state, which creates a contradiction that destabilizes the new belief because it tells your mind, I don't actually have it yet. I'm still waiting for it. I'm still in the state of not having. And waiting is the problem because waiting is the state of not having. And that state generates more not having. Think about people you know who desperately need money. Do they ever get it? No. And people who are relaxed about money always seem to have enough. That's not coincidence. That's the importance paradox in action. DOTS shows you how to give importance to yourself internally rather than to outcomes externally, which means you maintain the new belief without collapsing it by needing proof. And this is what makes installed beliefs permanent instead of temporary. So 5 sources, each one essential, each one incomplete without the others, and together they form the complete manual. Now, I need to tell you how this is organized because the structure matters. This channel contains 42 videos organized in 4 phases, and each phase serves a specific function, and each one builds on the previous. You cannot skip ahead because the structure is sequential for a reason that I need to explain. And I know what you're thinking right now. 42 videos? That's a lot. Can't I just jump to the techniques? And I get it. You want the solution now. You've been struggling with this for a while and you just want it to work. But here's what I need you to understand. Most people want to jump straight to techniques, and that's exactly why they fail. Without understanding the mechanism first, you're applying techniques blind. You don't know what's supposed to happen, so you can't tell if it's working. Without the diagnostic framework, you can't troubleshoot when techniques don't work because you don't know which part of the system failed. Without the structure, you don't know where your blocks are stored, which means you're trying to clear them without knowing where they are. So we start with foundation, then diagnosis, then protocols, then integration, which means by the time you reach phase 4, you'll be completely self-sufficient. You won't need me anymore because you'll have the complete system and the ability to diagnose and solve your own blocks without external guidance. Phase 1 is foundation, which contains 11 videos that teach you how the mechanism actually works, not theory, but mechanics. How consciousness creates physical reality through the belief, emotion, behavior, result, chain, what the 6 filters are and how they organize your personality into layers that require different approaches to change, how you code time, and why that coding determines whether certain techniques can even work for you in the first place. And here's something that might surprise you. Some people literally cannot visualize their future or live from the end because of how their unconscious mind codes time. It's not resistance. It's not that they're bad at visualization. It's that their neurology structures time differently, and the technique is incompatible with their wiring. If that's you, it's not your fault. You just need to convert your time coding first, and then the technique becomes accessible. Phase 1 also explains why deletion, distortion, and generalization hide evidence from you even when it's directly in front of you. Have you ever had evidence of success but somehow didn't see it? Or saw it but dismissed it? That's not you being stupid. That's your perceptual filters doing what they're designed to do, confirm existing beliefs. And phase 1 explains why emotions follow beliefs instead of creating them, which resolves the confusion most people have about feeling your way into new beliefs. You'll understand why that approach feels so forced and fake, and you'll learn the correct sequence instead. The purpose of phase 1 is to give you complete structural understanding before you attempt any diagnosis or technique, because most people skip this, and that's exactly why they fail. They're using tools without understanding what the tools are supposed to do. Phase 2 is diagnosis, which contains 10 videos that teach you how to identify your specific blocks with precision, not guessing. And this is where you finally get answers to questions you've probably been asking for years. Why do I keep self-sabotaging? Why do I say I want success but then don't take action? Why do techniques work for other people but not me? The 5-second reality check, which is the simplest diagnostic. Your current reality is your belief report card. If your life is working, your beliefs are functional. If it's not, they're not. It's that simple. And this gives you an instant snapshot of where you are without needing complex analysis. Your inner conversation analysis, which tracks what you say to yourself for 3 days so you can see exactly which beliefs are running on autopilot. And I'm guessing if you actually did this, you'd be shocked at how negative your self-talk is. Most people have no idea how much they're reinforcing limiting beliefs through inner conversation. The worst case technique, which reveals hidden beliefs by asking what you're actually afraid of if you succeed. And this one is powerful because it bypasses your conscious defenses and shows you what's really running. Memory archaeology, which traces beliefs back to their installation event so you can clear them at the source. Because here's the thing, you can try to override a belief with affirmations, but if you haven't addressed the memory that installed the belief, it keeps coming back. The 6 filters analysis, which shows you which layer of your personality holds the block, so you know which clearing protocol to use. This is where the structure becomes practical. You're not just guessing anymore. You know exactly where the problem is. The purpose of phase 2 is to build diagnostic precision so you stop guessing about what's wrong and start knowing exactly where the misalignment is. Because without diagnosis, you're just throwing techniques at random hoping one works. Phase 3 is protocols, which contains 13 videos that teach you multiple techniques because different minds need different approaches and different filters require different clearing methods. And I want to be clear about something. There is no one technique that works for everyone. If someone tells you just do SATs and everything will work, they're oversimplifying. Timeline dissociation for clearing traumatic memories at their source. Generational clearing for trauma that isn't yours but was inherited from your parents or grandparents. And yes, this is real. You can be carrying beliefs that were installed in your parents or grandparents, and they're affecting you now. Neville SATs for installing new beliefs when the conscious mind is offline. Revision for rewriting past memories to change the beliefs they support. Living from the end for occupying the state of already having what you want. Ritual bypass for convincing skeptical conscious minds through trusted structures. This is for those of you whose conscious mind is really strong and logical and rejects anything that feels like woo-woo. Identity shifting for high-stakes situations that require immediate change. Inner conversation, control for daily maintenance of installed beliefs. The purpose of phase 3 is to give you a complete toolkit so you can match the right technique to your specific situation, your mental wiring, and the filter that's blocked, because there's no one-size-fits-all approach. What works for one person's metaprograms might not work for another person's decisions. Phase 4 is integration, which contains 10 videos that teach you how to become completely self-sufficient. And this is the goal. Not to make you dependent on this channel, but to give you the tools to handle anything that comes up. The complete 10-point troubleshooting framework for diagnosing why techniques aren't working. Surface versus root belief analysis using the 6 filters model to find the deepest block, because sometimes you clear what you think is the problem, but there's a deeper belief underneath that's still running. Conviction maintenance systems for keeping new beliefs stable before evidence appears. This is where most people fail. They install the belief but then collapse it by checking for evidence. Multi-area coordination for working on multiple life areas simultaneously. Can you work on money and relationships at the same time, or does that dilute your focus? The answer might surprise you. Building your personal protocol toolkit by matching techniques to your specific wiring and common blocks. Advanced troubleshooting using deletion, distortion, generalization mechanics when you can't see results, because sometimes the results are there, you're just deleting them. The purpose of phase 4 is mastery. By the end, you'll have the complete system, the diagnostic tools, the techniques, and the troubleshooting ability to handle any situation that arises without needing external guidance. Now, let me tell you how to use this channel because the structure matters. This channel is organized as an archive, which means it's designed for sequential viewing, not random consumption. You start with phase 1, video 1, and you progress in order through all 4 phases because each video builds on the previous ones and assumes you've absorbed what came before. And I know you're probably tempted to skip around. You want to jump to the technique that sounds most interesting, or you think you already know the foundation, so you want to skip to diagnosis. But here's what happens if you do that. You'll miss critical context that makes later videos comprehensible. And you'll end up confused about why techniques aren't working when the real reason is you never learned the foundation that explains what the techniques are supposed to do. The videos are long, 35 to 50 minutes each. Because this isn't entertainment, this is education. Each video is a complete deep dive into one specific topic. And they're thorough because shallow teaching is what you've already tried and it didn't work. This is the alternative, complete, systematic, detailed instruction that leaves no gaps. You might be thinking, I don't have time for 42 long videos. And I get that, but here's what I want you to consider. How many hours have you already spent on manifestation? How many videos have you watched? How many courses have you bought? How many techniques have you tried? If you add it all up, it's probably hundreds of hours. And where has that gotten you? What I'm offering is a structured path that actually leads somewhere. Instead of consuming random content hoping something works, you get a systematic education that builds on itself. Yes, it takes time, but it's time that actually produces results, instead of keeping you on the same hamster wheel. Here's what you'll be able to do by the time you finish this curriculum, and I want to be specific because I'm not interested in vague promises. You'll understand the complete mechanism of how consciousness creates physical reality, which means you'll know exactly what's supposed to happen when you apply a technique, so you can tell if it's working or if something's misaligned. And this alone is huge, because right now you're applying techniques blind, not knowing if they're supposed to take days or weeks or months, not knowing what signs to look for, not knowing when to adjust. You'll have diagnostic precision, which means you'll know exactly where beliefs are stored in your personality and which clearing protocol matches which filter, so you stop guessing about what's wrong. No more throwing techniques at the wall. No more blaming yourself when something doesn't work. You'll know exactly where the problem is and exactly how to fix it. You'll have multiple installation techniques, which means you can match the right method to your mental wiring and the specific situation you're in. If you're logic-oriented, you'll know which techniques work best for you. If you're emotion-oriented, you'll know your techniques. If you're visual, kinesthetic, or auditory, you'll know how to adapt methods to your wiring. You'll have the complete troubleshooting system, which means when something doesn't work, you'll know exactly what to check: conscious mind rejection, root belief not addressed, time coding issue, wrong filter blocked, importance too high, deletion hiding evidence, distortion misinterpreting signs, generalization turning one failure into a pattern. You'll know how to test which one is the problem and how to fix it. And most importantly, you'll be self-sufficient, which means you won't need external validation or guidance anymore because you'll have the complete system and the ability to diagnose and solve your own blocks. And this is true mastery, not needing a teacher because you become your own authority. Now, I need to be honest with you about something. This isn't another manifestation channel promising easy results with simple techniques. If that's what you're looking for, there are plenty of channels that will tell you to visualize for 5 minutes and you'll get whatever you want. They'll tell you to repeat affirmations and the universe will deliver. They'll tell you to just believe and everything will work out. And maybe that works for some people. Maybe there are people for whom manifestation is that simple. But if you're watching this video, that's probably not you. You've already tried the simple techniques. They didn't work. And you're here because you want to understand why. This is the complete manual for reality creation, built from 5 sources that each contribute essential pieces that the others don't provide. Seth for the mechanism, Timeline for the structure, Bashar for the diagnostics, Neville for the installation, Dots for the maintenance. If you've tried manifestation before and it didn't work, it's not because you didn't believe enough, it's because you were missing frameworks. The conscious mind, gatekeeper, that requires logical proof before accepting new beliefs. The 6 filters structure that shows where beliefs are stored. The time coding that determines which techniques are even possible for your neurology. The troubleshooting system that lets you diagnose what failed instead of just being blamed. This channel provides what was missing, and I'm not claiming this is the only way or that I have absolute truth. What I'm saying is that I've spent years synthesizing these 5 sources, testing the framework, seeing what works and what doesn't, and this is the result. You should evaluate it for yourself. You should question it. You should test it. That's the only way you're going to know if it's real. The teaching is thorough because shallow teaching is what you've already tried. The videos are long because complex systems require complete explanation. The structure is sequential because you can't skip steps in a mechanical process. The tone is direct because you don't need motivation, you need mechanics. Start with phase 1, video 1. Watch in order. Apply what you learn. Test the principles. Build the conviction that comes from seeing the system work. By phase 4, you'll be completely self-sufficient. You'll have the map, the diagnostic tools, the techniques, and the troubleshooting ability to handle any situation without external guidance. Welcome to the complete manual.